A few years ago, MKBHD said something pretty apt about the smartphone market of the era, that cheap smartphones were starting to get pretty good, and that good smartphones were starting to get pretty cheap. 2015 Marquez was right, at least until things started to change, because honestly, the 2017 iPhone X, it screwed us over, guys. I mean, it was the first mainstream flagship handset with a truly ostentatious $1,000 starting price point. Now, when Apple announced this on stage, I, along with many other tech YouTubers, thought that this was bananas, that it would send most consumers into sticker shock, that a reasonable individual would not spend more than $1,000 on a smartphone. The thing is, I was wrong. We were wrong. iPhone X was the best-selling iPhone model nearly every week after its release, until it was just recently dethroned by the iPhone XR. You better believe that other flagship brands saw Apple selling this phone successfully, they took note, and over the last year and a half, the price of the average flagship smartphone has skyrocketed northward. I mean, even self-laudatory brands like OnePlus aren't that inexpensive anymore, with price points nearing that of the priciest flagships from just a couple of years ago. One thing, however, does remain true about Marquez's statement, and that is that entry-level, low-margin, low-end smartphones are better than they've ever been before. This video is sponsored by Dashlane. Never forget another password. Sign up for free today with the link below. Yes, I'm talking about the Pocophone F1, a phone that needs no introduction. And this is certainly not a review of said device because it has been praised at length by many other tech reviewers. So what's the big deal? I mean, why are thousands of newfound fanboys scourging the YouTube comments of every video saying, "This isn't a Pocophone, so it sucks"? Well, it's because $300 gets you a pretty amazing smartphone. One with the same Snapdragon 845 SoC, same GPU, and same 12 megapixel rear camera sensor as the $900 Google Pixel 3 XL. It even has 2 gigabytes more RAM and a larger battery than that device. Of course, at 1/3 the price of Pixel 3 XL, it is lacking on some features, although they're quite small. Like there's no wireless charging, there's no optical image stabilization, and instead of using a 1440p OLED display, they opt for a nice but clearly inferior and cheaper 1080p IPS LCD display. But make no mistake, hardware-wise, these cheap phones are closer to flagship handsets than ever before. And the Pixel 3 XL looks like a pretty dismal value at essentially 3 times the price of Pocophone. So how does the Google Pixel justify its cost? Well, software. Software-wise, these phones are completely different. I mean, Pocophone is running a heavily skinned version of Android Pie using MIUI, Xiaomi's long-criticized iPhone knockoff launcher. Now, I actually don't mind MIUI. I've been using it off and on since 2014. And while, sure, of course, I prefer the software experience of the Pixel, the Pocophone isn't terrible. It's just worse. That said, the phone is pretty fast out of the box and seems pretty reasonable with RAM management. Now, I mentioned earlier that these two phones use the same rear camera sensor. Now, that's only one part of the equation because the Pixel 3 uses a significantly higher quality lens assembly with optical image stabilization and a tighter field of view at a 28mm equivalent focal length versus the Pocophone's wider angle 20mm. Lastly, but most importantly, back to software, Google's phones have a Pixel-specific version of Google Camera that is fantastic. Software is the name of the game in modern-day smartphone imagery, and the Pocophone, I mean, despite having the same camera sensor, it just can't hold a candle to it. It's almost comical to compare the two side by side. Pocophone has significantly less detail, with tons of weird smoothing on just about every surface that honestly, I mean, it looks downright terrible. Pixel 3 XL provides significantly more detail without feeling over-sharpened. Furthermore, in a lot of these pictures, you'll note that the Pocophone has a really obvious and gross green cast on the images. White balance is consistently spotty, skin tones look weird, and unlike Pocophone, Pixel 3 XL nails it on just about every shot. As if that weren't bad enough, I mean, even exposure is a hit or miss with Pocophone, often overexposing shots and completely blowing out highlights. Furthermore, it's one of the only cameras I've seen that produces an image that is both too flat and also oversaturated. I mean, it's really bizarre. Now, I don't want to make it sound like the Pocophone takes horrible photos because it doesn't. They're not that good. Rumor has it, however, that Xiaomi is nerfing the Pocophone's camera on purpose so that it doesn't cut into the sales of their own higher-priced flagship offerings. And that is just a delicious conspiracy theory that I couldn't help but bite into. You see, you stupid Apple sheep, the great thing about Android is that if you hate something, you can probably change it. Xiaomi permits unlocking of the Pocophone's bootloader after an annoying but necessary 72-hour wait period. This means that we can completely replace the firmware with a third-party ROM. Now, there are a lot of options out there for Pocophone, but I went with Lineage OS, which, for those that have been out of the Android game for a couple of years, is essentially a spiritual successor to CyanogenMod. It's as bare-bones Android as stock Android can get. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole install process, but it's relatively painless and par the course for your average Android phone ROM install. That said, the fine folks at Linus Tech Tips have made an excellent step-by-step video if you are looking to do this to your own Pocophone. Once it's installed, it is amazing. It is one of the fastest phones that I have ever used, even faster than my Pixel 3 XL at opening certain apps. The fingerprint sensor remains one of the quickest I've ever used on any device ever. It's faster than the Pixel and way faster than the, sorry fanboys, abysmal in-screen fingerprint sensor on the OnePlus 6T. Lineage OS takes an already great phone and makes it even better. But that's not all, because there is a fork of Pixel's Google Camera app that installs in mere seconds. I mentioned earlier in the video that while Pocophone's optics are different from the Pixel, it has the same sensor and the same SoC, which means that this Google Camera fork works perfectly, exactly like it would on a Pixel. HDR+? Check. Night mode? You betcha. It's all here, folks. And jeepers, these photos look amazing. Take a look at these two photos I posted on Twitter. One is shot by the Pixel 3 XL, and the other is shot by the Pocophone using Google Camera. Can you tell which one is which? They are pretty dang close. The Pixel has a little bit more detail, but I actually think that the Pocophone got the white balance a little bit better, and that the Pixel has a little bit of a green cast. Both phones, though, are really close, and my Twitter poll suggests that most of you actually preferred the shot from the Pocophone. That said, as Marquez pointed out on Twitter, and he's right, this is a best case scenario. In these subsequent photos, you'll start to see that the Pocophone still falls a bit short by continuing to over-smoothen certain textures, although it does so way less aggressively. I mean, just look at the detail there is in this coin slot with the Google Camera software versus the original Pocophone before we flashed it. The Google Camera wielding Pocophone also has a little bit less dynamic range than the Pixel. Look at these cars. See how completely blown out it is on the Pocophone, while the Pixel still retains most of the highlight information? The most glaring shortcomings on Pocophone, however, are macro shots. I mean, this photo is really no comparison. The texture detail on the leaf and the overall focus and depth is just significantly better on the Pixel. With that said, it is amazing to see how close these two cameras have become. And where Pixel used to win every single time, they now actually trade blows. I mean, look at this front-facing portrait shot. It's really interesting because while the dual selfie cam Pixel has more detail and overall white balance, it actually does a significantly worse job at blurring the background correctly. Look at the monitor arm and look over on the chair by my shoulder. I mean, the Pocophone absolutely nails it. When it comes to extremely low light shots, Pixel still reigns king. It's honestly, it's not even close. I mean, even when enabling night mode on both of these phones for an extremely low light shot, Pixel 3 just obliterates the Pocophone. I'm guessing this has to do a lot with the optical image stabilization. In the same breath, look at the Pocophone compared to iPhone X on both shots. I mean, it looks fantastic by comparison's sake. So what have we learned? Well, the Pixel 3 XL still remains the best flagship Android phone, at least in my opinion. However, it is crystal clear that you can make the overall experience between a cheap smartphone and an expensive smartphone closer than you have ever been able to do before. And I mean, honestly, my singular complaint with the Pocophone is the display. It's not that it's a bad display, it's just that if it were slightly better, I think anyone would be crazy to buy anything other than a Pocophone. And for those that are on a budget, you are not settling with something like the Pocophone. Far from it. I mean, it is truly remarkable. And I'm hoping that companies like Google and Apple and Samsung realize that charging more than $1,000 for a smartphone, now that smartphones like this one exist, is a non-starter, because we just want a good deal. A good deal like Dashlane, the deal of the century. Look, using the same password for everything is a really bad idea, but most of us still do it. Dashlane makes your life secure by automatically generating, storing, and autofilling your passwords. With the Dashlane Premium account, you can sync all of your logins between devices. There's an included VPN to secure yourself when you're on a public network. There is a security report to see your internet hygiene. You can automatically change passwords at the click of a button. Seriously, one click and boom, password change. You can share your logins with family and friends without ever showing them the actual password. Great for sharing Netflix, etc. Get an account free today by visiting the link in the video description. And when you decide to sign up for Dashlane Premium, use the code SnazzyLabs to save 10%. Well, folks, that's all for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you didn't, that YouTube rewind button seems to work okay too. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay snazzy. See you later, folks.